Hi everyone, today we're going to go through all the functionality in the new Registree dashboard, looking at what a student can see within the platform, moving on to what a lecturer can view, and finally looking at what the recruiter can interact within the platform to actually engage with students and request their contact information. So to begin with, we're going to log in as a student, and I'm going to log in using auth0 with the student at demo account. The information for this account can be found online on our website under the Try MVP section, so you can log into the platform and actually see what it looks like for yourself. So we've logged in as the student, and we can see there's a whole load of different courses, each with different course components, and we get nice visualization showing the breakdown of each of the course components and the marks that we've achieved as this particular student. Obviously, this particular sample set of data is randomly generated, but in the real case, clearly this would be the student's actual marks. We can go and click on a course and view individual breakdowns for this course for the student, comparing the student's grades against the rest of the class averages, and able to see individual breakdowns for each component. If the student prefers, they can obviously also see their marks in a filterable table. Next, the student can view a verified transcript of their information, and this can be printed as a PDF, which is formatted nicely in a printer-friendly format. Next, moving on to personal information, the student can go and view all the information that the system has on them. At the moment, this functionality is limited to turning on or off queryability, meaning that their results will appear in an employer's search, but in future this will contain all the information around a student's profile. And in future, there'll be a timeline showing all the interactions that the student has had with the system. The last piece of functionality we're going to look at is claiming ownership. So the idea here is providing the ability for the student to transfer ownership of their marks away from the Registree platform and into a self-sovereign ownership paradigm using UPort. So we're going to go through this claiming ownership procedure, and we're going to begin with looking at the terms and conditions, which the student can read through, accepting terms and conditions, and pushing claim ownership. At this point, we're going to authenticate the student, and what this means is to actually tell our interface what the student's UPort account is. So on pressing authenticate and then pressing continue with UPort, a QR code will pop up. And within the application, we click the scan QR code button in the bottom right, and a camera pops up. Scan the QR code, it'll ask us to log in with your account, press login with this account, and then press share your information. Then on the front end, once it has detected you've logged in, the QR code should disappear and you're automatically redirected to the next step. So at this point, you've logged in with UPort, and we now want to actually claim ownership over these marks. So we push the claim ownership button, and it will send a push notification to UPort within the phone. And when this pops up, we just need to accept it, saying that we actually want to claim ownership of all this information, and we're now redirected to the next step. And we can now see that we have a certificate within our UPort app, which shows the institution, some information about the student, and importantly, the contract address, which is the actual ownership details of this information. We can then, within the app, within the DApp, click verify ownership. And what this will do is double check that we've successfully claimed ownership within UPort. And in order to verify this, again, we're going to have to sign to log in with this account and then share information with the DApp. And if everything has gone correctly, we should now get a pop-up in the top right-hand corner saying that ownership has been verified using UPort. The last element of student functionality is to log in using UPort to gain access to our student marks without having to use our username and password, showing the full life cycle of the self-sovereign ownership process. So in order to do this, we're going to click sign in with UPort. And at this point, we're going to be presented again with a QR code, which we're going to scan on the mobile app. So we push the scan QR code button on the phone, scan the QR code, and again, it's going to ask us to log in with our account to verify that we have any kind of certificate associated with our UPort account. And you can see now it's asking us to log in and share some information, and primarily the address of the actual contract, which gives ownership of those marks to the student. Once that's verified, the student will then be redirected, and you can see we've logged in using UPort, and again we have the same dashboard as before. But what's important to note now is that we have my UPort photo here, as well as my name that's pulled directly from UPort, indicating that we've claimed self-sovereign ownership over these marks. Next, we're going to look at the lecturer functionality. So again, we're going to log in with Auth0, providing the lecturer the ability to log in with their existing credentials at whatever institution they're part of. So in this case, this would be their existing UCT username and password. And yeah, once they log in, very simple interface. And this is more of a visualization tool for the lecturers. So they're able to go and select the different courses from which they teach. So let's say financial software engineering. They click on the course, and this is a very simple table showing basically the distribution of each of the students within the course. They can see the components within the course and also see some sort of frequency distribution of the marks within the course. We've tried to create some interactive analytics for the lecturer. So if they click on this block, they can view a distribution of different components within the course. And this enables them to sort of compare how different components within their tests or within the course as a whole performed. They can also compare how their course average compared to previous averages. The lecturer can also then go and view detailed information about a particular student. So the key here is to try and identify students that are in need and students that might potentially need help. And this is done through an interactive visualization. And if a student, let's say, wasn't passing, then the interface would inform them that potentially the student needs a little bit of extra attention. They can also compare this student's averages against the class's average to get a holistic overview of the student's performance against the average. Lastly, we're going to log in as a recruiter. So the recruiter within this interface is able to query information of students that have granted permission to be found. They actually can't view any personal information of students. They have to request access to this information unless the student has explicitly granted otherwise. So again, this login information can be found on our website under the Try MVP section. So once the recruiter logs in, they are presented with a very simple interface which enables them to select a number of different filters over which they want to query. So let's say that they want to look at all the candidates within the University of Cape Town, and then they can filter by degree or course. So let's go via course. We're able to go and see all the courses that are taught within this institution, and we can select multiple ones. So say we wanted to view data visualization and supervised learning, and we wanted to get the top X number or percent over these two courses. So let's start off with the top 10% or 15% of the data visualization students at UCT. When we perform the search, we then get the results which correspond to that, seeing the top 15% of students within this institution. Now, what's important is that there's no student names, email addresses, or any kind of personal information here. All we can see is the student's address, their average for the particular filter that we did, and whether or not they've completed the degree. If the recruiter then wants to reach out to the student, they can then push the contact button. And what this is going to do is send a push notification to the student and requesting that this recruiter has requested your information. The student can then choose whether or not to actually interact with this recruiter based on what they want to do. And yeah, so that's the 3 key users. And this sums up the functionality in the Registree dashboard at the moment.